Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are, day 2, 10th annual Deerfest here in West Bend, Wisconsin. Tom Rainey here from Browning Trail Cameras with the Break Pawdcast with Derek Dirnberger. And we have my good friend, Mr. Jeremy Moore here. I think Jeremy might be the best dog man in the country here. So we're going to talk about another adventure you have, and that is DogBone Hunter.
You bet. You bet. It's what really started us. You know, for me, I love training, and I always have. I'm not a formal, trained trainer. Construction's my background, and in college I got a really good gun dog, and that was what really hooked me. I went to college with guys from Minnesota who were big duck hunters, and we got into labs. Now my family had golden retrievers. I was raised with golden retrievers, so I got a little soft spot for them. But I got my first lab then, and really got into the bird stuff. But I quickly realized, like I said before, man, I'm a deer guy. And when I got out of college, I had a great gun dog, but I realized for those years I'd given up deer hunting, focused on the bird stuff. And the reason I focused on the bird stuff was because of the dog stuff. That's
right.
Always. I wouldn't bird hunt if I didn't have a dog. Yeah. And I think a lot of dog people are that way. And so when I got back home and I had this dog, I realized, man, I got to get back into the deer and focus on trying to. At that point in my life, I was really focusing on trying to kill big deer or old deer. And I realized there's not enough time in the day to do both. You can't really commit to deer hunting and waterfowl because there's so much scouting with waterfowl. You spend so much time doing that. So I decided I kind of backed off on the bird hunting stuff. And I had a great dog that looked at me every morning when I would go deer hunting, and I felt sick about it. But I had heard about guys that were shed hunting with dogs, and again, this is a long time ago. When I Googled it, there was one article from Outdoor Life that came up on a Google search. Talked about a guy out in Montana, or he was out Colorado, Montana. He had trained a dog to shed hunt with it. And I had heard about people doing it a little bit, but you got to remember, back then, like, you could knock on a door and ask someone to shed hunt, and they would ask you, what is that? They didn't even know what it was.
Yeah, no idea.
And you could get on anyone's land to do it. Nowadays, it's, my nephew shed hunts, or my kids, or I do, or whatever. So it's changed quite a bit in a relatively short period of time. But back then, I took that older dog of mine and I trained her to shed hunt. And I threw sheds for her, and it worked. And I was really lucky. Well, that dog, despite me, turned into a really good dog as a duck dog, as a goose dog, upland, and sheds. And it really was what motivated and inspired me to take training a little more serious. And so I bought a puppy. I was just going to shed hunt with that one. And early on in the training, she was about 6 months, I threw an antler for her. And it was really her first introduction to an antler. And she poked herself. And she hurt herself. And she wanted nothing to do with antlers. And right then I was just sick, because I thought, I bought the dog to shed hunt with, and she was deathly afraid of them. And I was so disappointed. And at first, probably I was disappointed in her. And then I realized real quickly, I should be disappointed in myself. Like, I set her up poorly. Mm-hmm. And so I realized very quickly that in training, when we run into problems, it's my fault usually. And I'm not afraid to say it. It's just, that's the reality. So I had introduced her the wrong way to an antler. And I thought about it, and I thought, there's got to be a better way to do this. When I train gun dogs, if I want to train a dog to be a pheasant dog, I would not put it in a pen with a bunch of roosters and cross my fingers. Hope it turns out. It's not going to work. Yeah. Too many things uncontrolled, and too many things will go wrong, and the dog's going to be turned off. So what I do is I incrementally get them there. So I start with a balled up sock, and then I go to a canvas bumper, and then I tape wings to it, then I add scent, cold game, fresh killed game, live pigeons. Eventually I get them to a rooster. And it's incremental, it takes time, and it takes lots of little baby steps. Why wouldn't I do something like that with a shed dog? And so that was when I thought, I use training dummies to introduce the shape of a bird. Why not think about doing something like that with an antler? And so I sourced a manufacturer. They're made in Minnesota. We still make them at the same place in Minnesota. But I got this antler, and I sent it to them. We made a mold of it. We created it out of this material that is flexible. It's not going to poke or jab or hurt my puppy, but it is going to condition them to, it looks like an antler. So I'm shape conditioning the idea of what something looks like to equal a reward. And from there, so then I developed this idea of, well, what about the scent part of it? So I took a while to figure out how I could replicate some of these scenting elements that are found in an antler. And then I just basically took the process of training a gun dog or bird dog, and I substituted the shape and the scents, but I take a very, very similar approach. And I had success with these dogs picking up antlers, and that really that started DogBone. And that was it. And then I had a client that I was training a dog for, and he said, what about tracking? Can you get these dogs to track? And he's a big deer guy. Like, he's a big time deer hunter. And I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? I don't know why you couldn't. I had never trained a dog for tracking deer, but I had trained lots of bird dogs to track cripples. I have to. And so I learned a lot from about tracking stuff. Actually, he's not a sporting dog guy at all. He was a cop in New York, and he trained dogs that were used during 9/11. But he trained these dogs for scent discrimination, for drugs, for bombs, for tracking humans, criminals. So I learned a lot about the idea of scent discrimination from him, and I thought, man, if you can train a dog to follow a guy through the streets of New York based on his skin cells and adrenaline that's coming off of a criminal that did a crime, I went, damn, a gut shot deer in the swamp, no problem. My dogs will be just fine. And so from that, we developed tools that we used to train dogs to track. And then we wrote, I replicated a very similar process to what I do with a gun dog. Just substituted some of the steps and substituted some of the items, the tools, the scents, and had a lot of success with that. So we developed DogBone as this brand of deer dog training products. I mean, we did a seminar here today and yesterday, and we called it Developing Your Deer Dog. That was a segment that we did for North American White. We still do it for North American Whitetail TV. But it's this idea of giving the products and the information to people to be able to train their own dogs to do stuff that's going to help them with deer. And it doesn't mean that you have to give up the other parts. My dogs do everything. My dogs do sheds, they do tracking, they do upland, they do duck dogs. Hell, my wife's got a therapy dog out of all, and she's the mascot for Whitetails Unlimited. So like I think you can do a lot. We never fully get out what the dogs have in them.
It's just so fascinating to me that you could come up with that system, because the need to be able to track deer, to find sheds recreationally, all those different things, and actually develop a focused training process for teaching them to do that. Because you're right. I mean, we've never really tapped into what dogs can do. They're
far from it.
I mean, on any level, it's just amazing the things that they're capable of.
Right.
Because you even see those the stories where, I don't know, somebody will have a heart attack, and the dog ends up going for help, and it's like, I always thought Lassie was a scam, man. Lassie was
telling. I saw that episode too.
Right. Timmy really was in the well.
Yeah, right. But you're right, and there's been a lot in the news lately with dogs detecting cancer. They can detect, they can smell it. Diabetic alert dogs have been around for a while now, where they'll detect a person's insulin level up or down before the test will ever read it. I mean, so the ability for the dog's level of acuteness within their nose is we can't even wrap our minds around it. Yeah. There's stats that they can, scientific stuff that they can show you that dogs can do with their noses. It's mind blowing. I mean, think about a deer's nose, right? Now, a deer's life is dependent on the success of their nose. Mm-hmm. In the old days, dogs would have been the same way. A good, you know what they call a dog that can't track? A dead one. A wolf or a coyote that can't track doesn't survive. So evolution has weeded out the bad nose, and our dogs are, direct descendants of that. So they all smell well. They all have, in so many ways, the capabilities to do things that we'll never maximize. I do my damnedest to try to, but even the best ones I've ever trained, I couldn't get it all out of them. There's no way.
Some people might be curious about this, and I think I'm going to say this correctly. You might have different terminology, or I might just be an idiot, because I am most of the time. Most of the time, that's the correct answer. But you use positive training techniques.
Yeah, I do.
There's no I don't. Maybe I'm going too far with no negative reinforcement.
Yeah.
But your techniques are positive in
Yeah.
theme,
built,
basically.
Built off of a reward, and I'm going to say that, and then everyone's going to go, oh, he's a treat trainer. I'm not a treat trainer. I'm not the guy that wears
That's
the
how I'm gonna
fanny
get you a
pack, big
T-shirt.
fella. No, yeah, I should have shirts that say I'm not a treat
trainer.
But and I don't. I say that somewhat jokingly because I'll offend somebody, and we're a very sensitive society. But I don't mean to offend. I don't have anything against street training. I don't have anything against force stuff, force fetch, shot collars. I don't use them. Absolutely do not use them. I don't believe in that philosophy. I also don't believe in the philosophy of all positive and treats. I think so, and I won't bag on either one much. I will a bit, but I think treat training, you run the risk of creating a dog that acts off of bribery, and I don't want to bribe my dogs to do things. I want to condition habits. The force part of it, I don't want dogs working out of fear. I don't believe in avoidance training. So I like to find somewhere in the middle. And why I tell people, I never say you shouldn't do this,
right.
You should do this. I think you shouldn't be pinned down to one style. You should listen to everybody's style and then figure out what fits best for you. So that's what I've done. So my style is a complete mix of several other people that I've taken things that I like and I've taken things that I don't like. And I've cut things out and I've added things in. And I've developed what works best for me and my dogs. And my goal, and maybe it's turned into a bit of a mission, is the idea of I would like to let as many people see that so that they realize there is an opportunity to do it other than treat, other than force. And so I'm a mix somewhere in the middle, but on the scale of force versus treat, I'm heavy towards positive. And when I say positive, it's because, hell, I know dogs have been bred to make us happy and please us. They need a job. A lot of them need a job to thrive. And the question is, or the hard part is, how do you get that out of them? How do you talk so that the dog understands it? Because it's not as simple as sitting down and having this conversation. I can't explain things to dogs that way. It's just not how they communicate. Deer communicate in a unique way with licking sticks. Dogs communicate in a unique way with tone and body language. And the idea of their timing is very important. Maybe one of the most overlooked things with dogs. Correction and praise has to happen within certain short windows of time to be effective. And so I think those are all skills that trainers develop, that you can improve on. I think the other thing that's probably, if anybody accuses me of anything, I'd like them to say, when it comes to dogs anyway, always pretty patient.
Yeah.
I'm not in a rush. I don't get pinned down by time frames. I try to avoid the idea of being stressed out because the dog's not doing something in a certain amount of time, because everyone works a little bit differently. So those are philosophy things that come with the idea of trainers, and that's how I lean. But like I said, I don't talk a lot about shock collars because I don't use them. But what I want to make sure is people understand I don't use them, and I never will. I think they create as many or more problems than they'll ever fix. The problem is people have been, I think, led to believe that they're the fix-all. And I want to show people that you can do it without them. I think that's real important for people to understand. Because I think there are a lot of people that don't want to use them, but they don't think they have any other options.
Right.
Yeah, no, actually, that's why I brought it up, because I do think that there are people that want to work with their dog,
Yes.
that don't want to put them through the shock process, and
Yep.
I think that your process and the way that you go about it is, at least from my particular taste, the way to go.
And that's just it. It's a taste thing. I love how you say that, because some folks don't have a problem with it. You know,
Right.
I don't force fetch. I hold condition. I get the same result without having to pinch the ear and have the dog screaming.
Right.
That's just my style.
Well, there's also the fact that I like dogs more than I like most people.
Well, you're not
So-
the only one like that. You know?
So there's that. So
Yeah.
if I've got any ears and noses I want to be pinching, I'm not real sure it's the dog.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Exactly. Well said. I might use that.
Exactly. My life motto right there. I'll make that a T-shirt.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So do you raise your own pups then?
I do, yeah. I do some joint stuff. I think genetics are real important. So over the years, I've developed as many relationships. I mean, I'm talking to two guys right now that know the world of relationships and the value and the importance of it, especially in our industry, right? So over the last 15, 16 years, I feel like I've done everything I can to try to really develop strong relationships. And I have really dialed in the style of dog that fits me well. So I've done some joint breeding stuff. I've done some individual breeding stuff. I don't consider myself a breeder. I think breeding is an art. I've been doing it long enough now, and I do it a bit selfishly probably because I know the dog I want. I know the dog that I want to train for my clients, and so in order to replicate it consistently or with the most consistency as I can, I do think it takes a particular style of dog, and there are certain lines of genetics that I've become real familiar with that I lean heavily towards. So I'm not a breeder, but I for myself, I take part in some really selective breeding, and as we grow as a company and as we move on from just further down the road as our business develops, and myself as a trainer, I really feel like one of my goals is to just dial that in even tighter and continue to dial it in. Again, it's selfishly I'm looking to work with the dog that fits me the best personally. Might not be the best fit for everybody else.
Right.
But for me, it needs to be. And I do think there's a lot of people, you go to our booth and you see the dogs, and there's a lot of people that I think are drawn to the idea of that style of dog. I like a dog that has plenty of energy in the field, but is very easily controlled and very cooperative. I think cooperative is one of the traits I look for in a dog. And there are a lot of ties back genetically to stuff like that.
Yeah. So I bought a lab about a year and a half ago or so, and I didn't really look at pedigree and those type of things. And one thing I just found out is there's two different types of labs. That's what I've been told: field labs and water dogs or duck dogs. So there's
yeah. I think there's different styles. There's lots of variations. And when you say I didn't look at the pedigrees, I'll be honest with you, the pedigrees don't mean much unless you know the dogs behind the pedigrees.
Yeah.
Like on paper, hell, I don't know most names. There are a few that I do. And it's interesting because as you look at more and more of them, you realize a lot of dogs out there are from a couple core names over the last however many generations.
Yeah.
We see that all the time. But unless you actually know those dogs and know the style of the dogs, I think one of the best ways to put it is when it comes to looking for the right dog. And I steal this completely from a podcast that I listened to of a guy that he owns. I can't remember the guy's name, but he owns a kennel called Paint River Llewellyns, or Paint River Setters. It's a Llewellyn setter kennel. The guy I think lives in New York. I listened to it. Project Upland was the podcast, but he said the thing that you need to do is buy a dog from someone who hunts the way you hunt and hunts what you hunt.
Yeah.
And so I think I've always said a dog should come from the style of what's important is the training style, the lifestyle, and the hunt style. Those things have to match what you're going to do. You can't fit round pegs in square holes.
Right.
It's hard to do. So there are differences in the labs. There's lots of differences. I lean heavily towards what is known as a UK bred dog or a British style field dog, not table. So I always look at there's field dogs and there's show dogs. Some are bred for conformation and looks. That's the show dog. Some are bred for natural game finding ability, strong noses. In the American, now, huge difference between the American style of field trial and the UK style of field trial. I prefer the UK style of field trials because it relates better to my hunting versus American field trials and hunt tests lean heavily towards some control with the dog. I almost think that, and I'll get in hot water for saying this, but I almost think that sometimes they breed out a lot of the qualities that I look for in a hunting dog.
Yeah.
Because in order for them, and I don't blame them, because they're playing a certain type of game and they need a certain type of player to do well in it, and that type of player isn't necessarily what I'm looking to do, because all I do is hunt. I don't compete. I want a hunting dog, and I want a family dog. I should reverse the order of that. My dogs are family dogs first.
Yeah.
Because hell, I don't hunt that much compared to live with my family.
Right.
And the best hunting dog in the world, if it can't do the things I'm doing at these shows and in our house, and if it can't do that stuff, it has no value to me in the field. Because I'm not into. I just think that the dog is not a tool that you park in the shed when the season's over. It's not like a four-wheeler.
Right.
It's part of our family, and that's how it fits in. That's how we build it in, kind of to our life.
Yeah.
So.
Well, where can people find information on DogBone Hunter? What's the website?
So, dogbonehunter.com.
Okay.
And DogBone Hunter is our, what do we call it? The username?
Your Instagram handle?
Yeah, the handle. Yeah, so DogBone Hunter for everything.
Okay.
So it's a lot easier. And that's our YouTube, our Instagram, our Facebook. And I think, we're probably I'm probably a little old-fashioned. I'm not super techie, if you can believe that. But I think that those social platforms for us, especially with DogBone, are so valuable because it's such an easy way for us to share information.
Oh, yeah.
And I just think that, we have made a major point. We've got we've done training DVDs, and we do a full line of training products, and we've evolved from shed to game recovery to general dog training. And so we have these different branches off of our line. Mm-hmm. But the information part.
Right.
I mean, that to me, we train dogs. We literally train. We've got one right now that's 16 weeks old that Ben will be recording all the training, and we'll put it live we'll basically put it live to YouTube. It'll be a daily upload. We're doing a series right now with a yellow lab that I'm training that's doing hand casting, going back, rights, and lefts.
Right.
We called it Cody Go Back. We've done 30 days in a row of it, and you see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I really believe that's the value, because you see all the mess. I get a little comfortable and I'm having a few beers. You see all the messing up I do.
Watch those words now.
Right? So you see all the mistakes. You see all the things that go wrong.
Right.
And it's a little risky on my part as a trainer because you can look like a real fool.
Right.
But it is so valuable because my dogs make the same mistakes as you. Right. I do think Instagram and Facebook and some of the social stuff serve as highlight reels at times, and they don't show necessarily the mess.
Right.
And so we have decided, I'm not that proud. I'll show the mess.
No, I think there's value in that on those social platforms, providing the authentic content.
Totally.
I think that everybody has, especially as people getting older, they've been using things for 10, 12, 15, 20 years now. I think authentic is making a move to the top of the list of things that people are interested in.
Yeah, and I thrive off of that. Because I make lots of mistakes. I mean, I'm good at making mistakes, and so it's something I do very well. But what I think is cool is the idea of how do you respond. I think mistakes are opportunities for dogs to learn most of the time. They are not when you lose your cool.
Yeah,
and that's where I go back to the P word, patience. It's the biggest compliment I can get when I'm at a show for someone to look at me and go, "You're just so damn patient with those dogs." Now, if you ask my wife or my kids or Ben, one of the guys that I work with, if you ask any of the guys I work with, I don't know that patience is going to be on the top of their list.
Yeah,
you've exhausted it all with the dogs.
Yeah, I'm a Jekyll and Hyde, man. But I realize with the dogs, you don't have any option.
Right.
You can't be an asshole to the dog.
You can't rationalize it with him.
Yeah. my dogs, I'll hurt their feelings, and if I hurt their feelings, they won't learn.
Yeah.
And so I have to recognize it's about being self-aware of what's around you. And you know what? Training dogs has made me a more patient person with my family, with my kids, and with faith. Like it's in all the parts of my life, dogs have made me better, and that is something I really appreciate it, and I won't forget it. It's something that I'm reminded of it often. So.
Well, one of the things that I like about both of your brands, with the Licking Stick and with your DogBone Hunter, is they're both like next step brands. So like if you've learned how to shed hunt and you're interested in shed hunting, if you want to take that next step, you start looking at the DogBone Hunter alternatives. If you want to find ways to identify what deer are using your field and get better imagery and see how they're interacting with each other, then you get involved with the Licking Stick. So that's what I like about both the brands you've got. It's both like next level things, both next level interaction. And so I think that what you were talking about, the more authentic content becomes more relevant, because when people look to take the next step, people become more intellectually engaged in what they're seeing. So they don't want to see everything polished up. They want to see what bumps am I going to encounter as I try to do this, or I try to engage in this. So I think there's a lot of common sense involved in providing more authentic content for people that are looking to take the next step and evolve, whether it's the DogBone Hunter or the Licking Stick type stuff.
I've realized with the social stuff, and we got relatively late into this game of building social media following and all that stuff, but I have 100% realized and I've said this, our following's not real wide. It's extremely deep. So like the people that are with us, man, they're with us, and I will all day long take that type of a follower as opposed to there's no depth to it. And so because I also think we've realized it's a long game. Training dogs is not a sprint, it's a marathon. I use that all the time. So is growing a business. Like my partner and I we never once have we said, let's build it really big, really fast so we can sell it.
Right.
Like I've got kids, and I hope to have grandkids. And I wouldn't mind. Our company's name is actually More Outdoors. I wouldn't mind my grandkids working for me.
Yeah.
Like my kid works for me right now. He's here at the show. He's working for me right now.
Well, wait a minute. I've seen the 10-year-old in the shop too.
Red. Oh, Red.
I've seen Red with a broom, buddy. I've seen them all working.
Red makes a Chinese sweatshop look like a Christmas break.
I've seen them all out there, buddy.
Red's a machine. Sierra's her name. We call her Red.
Yeah.
But Sierra, she's 10 years old, and she grinds it out in the summer in our shop. And Mason's, over here with Daniels,
Right.
They're busy. But, but yeah, so I look at it and I go, and my partner feels the same way. We both say, he's got young kids, and we both said, growing a business is not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Right.
And we just have to take that approach and be okay with the idea of it just takes a while. So, but I love opportunities like this. I really appreciate you guys having me, giving me the chance to kind of share our story. I think that's, I find a lot of interest in other people's stories.
Yeah.
And so I thank you for letting us kind of share ours.
Well, it's our pleasure. I don't know that I've got any more questions. I think you've got me satisfied for this afternoon here at Deerfest.
This was great,
I think this will be a good one. So
thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you stopping by.
Yep, I was going to say, for sure, once again, Mr. Jeremy Moore with The Licking Stick, and you can find him at thelickingstick.com. You can also find him on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Hodag Licking Stick. He also has DogBone Hunter, and that's dogbonehunter.com. DogBone Hunter on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So if you got any questions, you want to find anything out about both of these brands, check those out on the local interweb. And I believe that's going to do it for me and Mr. Derek Dirnberger for today, the second day, 10th annual Deerfest, West Bend, Wisconsin. And we will hope to see you on down the trail.